Howard remains silent about Hollywood's shadowy side for half a century. He's spilling the beans now.
Million-dollar lawsuits, mishaps that almost killed actors on his sets, and family secrets that nearly destroyed his marriage.
Finally, America's favorite filmmaker shares the truth about his traumatic experience. Ron Howard was born in Duncan, Oklahoma, a small town, on March 1, 1954. Rance, his father, was working as a writer and actor. Jean, his mother, was also an actress. Their finances were limited.
In actuality, things were quite difficult. However, they moved to Hollywood in 1958 when Ron was only 4 years old, packing up everything they owned. They were pursuing their dreams in the hopes of landing better acting roles.
That was dangerous. There were no assurances. They found themselves struggling to survive in a tiny house in Burbank.
As they raised their young boy with red hair. The peculiar aspect was that they resided near a large studio. As a child, Ron was surrounded by actors, cameras, and movie sets virtually every day.
He did not attend a typical preschool.
He was taught on movie sets instead, where he watched everything and gradually assimilated into that world. Despite the fact that nobody had anticipated it, their big move to California not only changed their living situation but also subtly altered their entire future. When Ron was just 18 months old, he made an appearance in the film Frontier Woman on January 4, 1956. It was not pre-arranged. Ron was used because his father needed a baby for a brief scene. Something great began with that little moment, just a baby crawling across a set.
His parents continued to face financial difficulties,
especially considering that his father had recently retired from the Air Force.
Ron was even given a live performance in a theater play by July 15, 1956.
However, despite his increased visibility, his parents did not want him to be viewed in the same way as other child stars. They held off on signing any long-term agreements until he was 5 years old.
They were almost bankrupted by that choice. When they were broke in 1957, Rance considered giving up acting and returning to Oklahoma to become a farmer.
But they hung on, just barely, because they thought they were doing the right thing for their son.
One rule was made very clear by Ron's parents starting in 1954. He wasn't allowed to act full-time until he was at least 5.
This included declining large offers in 1957 and 1958, despite their inability to pay the rent.
In order to continue, they had to pawn items.
They had given leaving Hollywood serious consideration by the end of 1958, but they ultimately decided against it. Things began to gradually change in 1959, when Ron turned 5. He was chosen to star in the film The Journey that year. His name also made its first appearance in the credits, but it wasn't a happy one. Other crew members teased him about his freckles and red hair on set. He was referred to as freckle-faced freak. He was devastated. His father, who was also on the set, nearly lost his job after a fight with one of the crew. Even though the job only paid $2,500, it was extremely important to them. His younger brother Clint was born on April 20th of the same year.
The finances were still tight.
Their debt totaled roughly $5,000 in today's dollars. Ron's parents, however, remained steadfast in their defense.
He continued attending public school.
Even as the pressure increased, they allowed him to be a child as much as possible.
Then a significant event occurred in 1960. Ron was cast as Opie Taylor in the Andy Griffith series.
His age was only 6. Casting was a difficult and drawn-out process.
Even though over 300 children tried out, Ron's innate charm was evident. When the show debuted on October 3, 1960, it quickly gained popularity. Ron appeared in 249 episodes during its run.
He was paid $300 per episode at first. He earned $1,000 per episode by the end of the show in 1968.
But a lot of pressure accompanied that success.
Despite his youth, he had to learn his lines, arrive on time, and give a flawless performance. Every joke and scene had to be delivered precisely at the right moment because there was no live audience.
He picked things up quickly, but it wasn't easy.
Ron's character made people feel warm and safe, and the show seemed to be set in a simpler era.
Because of this, viewers adored him. But in the background, he was maturing quickly. The star of the show, Andy Griffith, and Ron grew close. Co-star Andy was more than that. He played the role of a guide. Between takes, he would narrate stories to Ron and explain scenes. When Ron was only 6 years old, their relationship began, and it gradually became stronger. But it wasn't always quiet. On set, Ron occasionally witnessed Andy's heated arguments due to his drinking problems. The experience was frightening. Andy once got upset in front of everyone after reading aloud a negative review. In spite of everything, he was still considerate of Ron, supporting him during poignant moments and showing him respect. Andy even paid Ron a visit in 1997 while filming a Queen's movie. They discovered that they were, in fact, distant cousins only after Andy passed away in 2012. Their enduring relationship felt even more unique after this unexpected and endearing discovery. During a scene on a lake in 1962, Ron, then 8 years old, almost drowned. On a small boat, they were filming a fishing scene when something went wrong. Ron plunged into the water as the boat capsized. When Andy Griffith witnessed it, he jumped right in without hesitation. He extracted Ron. Because of the potential harm to the show's reputation, the producers did not want anyone to know. So, there was silence. However, Ron never forgot it. Safety regulations did not exist in those days. Youngsters could put in long hours at work. And mishaps were commonplace. Ron was changed by that close call with drowning. And when he began directing movies years later, he made sure that safety plans were in place on every set. Ron was 14 by the time The Andy Griffith Show concluded in 1968. However, he was rejected rather than given more roles. More than 50 auditions failed in 1968 and 1969. He was still viewed as Opie by everyone. He experienced a sense of helplessness. Informed his parents that he wanted to resign. Far less than what he used to make, he accepted menial parts like Gentle Ben in 1969 for a pittance of $500 per episode. In The Wild Country, he lost the lead in 1970. Things continued to deteriorate. In 1971, he became a member of the Smith family and received $8,000 for 39 episodes. But it was a failure. He kept his anxiety about all of this rejection hidden from other people. He was playing basketball in high school at the same time, scoring 12 points a game on average in 1972. He felt trapped inside, despite his best efforts to lead a typical adolescent life. Once more, things changed in 1973. Ron was cast in American Graffiti when he was just 19. The director was George Lucas. Filming began in California in June. On the surface, it appeared thrilling, but things were difficult behind the scenes. He was harassed by Paul Lammett and Harrison Ford, his co-stars. They hurled beer bottles close to his car on July 15 and shouted for him to dance, "Opie, dance." He was forced to miss rehearsals on July 20 after being locked in a trailer. They even put poison in his drinks. They didn't respect the fact that he had been a child star, which was the reason behind everything. Ron remained silent. Later on, he referred to it as his only Opie-shaming moment. Even so, he managed to survive and earn $10,000. Even after Ford apologized years later, the hurt remained. Ron had first encountered Cheryl Alley in high school in 1970. They went on their first date on November 1, and by December, there were rumors that Cheryl was expecting a child. Only 16 was their age. A flurry of gossip broke out. The school newspaper denied it in January 1971. The tabloids took notice in February. It cost him a $2,000 guest spot on television. They remained together despite Cheryl's devastation. 3 times, Ron made a proposal. It wasn't until October 1974 that she said yes. June 7, 1975, was the date of their marriage. It's been 50 years since they started dating. She is frequently referred to as Ron's lucky charm. The issue of money persisted after Andy Griffith. Ron began paper delivery in January 1971.
He delivered 200 papers before school every day and earned $150 a month.
To take Cheryl out, he had to have money. However, on April 5, 1971, he was traveling to an audition when he was rear-ended by a truck.
His next role had to be postponed due to whiplash. Medical expenses totaled $3,000. There was no insurance for him.
He even made $200 on his bike sale.
The pain persisted for years and had an impact on his movements in subsequent movie sequences. In 1973, American Graffiti became a huge hit, but Ron didn't get the recognition he deserved. On a pitiful budget of $777,000, the movie earned $115 million in the United States. However, Ron only received $10,000.
Not a cut of the earnings. George Lucas was asked to give him 1%.
More than $1 million. No, Lucas said, it damaged their friendship. In 1974, Ron had to accept a $1,000 per episode job on Happy Days in order to have a reliable source of income. His career took a turn for the better after that show, and he went on to direct. At the age of 19, Ron Howard began playing Richie Cunningham on the brand new television program Happy Days in January 1974.
January 15 marked the premiere of the first episode. 11 million people watched it. Richie's teenage years in 1950s Milwaukee were the show's initial focus.
However, by 1976, things began to shift.
Henry Winkler's character Fonzie rose to prominence.
Ratings exploded all of a sudden. The program shot to the top of the charts, with 31 million viewers each week. In the same year, ABC executives devised a new strategy.
They intended to capitalize on Fonzie's growing popularity by renaming the program Fonzie's Happy Days.
Over $1 million was made from Fonzie merchandise in 1976 alone.
However, Ron Howard didn't approve of it.
He was being pushed to the side, even though he had been the main attraction from the start.
He gave the producers a deadline in November 1976. He would resign if they changed the title. He was prepared to leave, even though his contract was set to expire in 1980. It almost fell apart.
On December 5, however, Variety magazine leaked the information, and fans were incensed.
Over 10,000 letters were sent to ABC. The show's heart wasn't supposed to be lost. ABC complied.
The original title was retained, and Howard remained. But something was irrevocably different. The show's annual revenue reached $50 million by 1977. However, Howard was only making $25,000 per episode, whereas Winkler was making $75,000.
In a subsequent interview in 1980, Howard stated that this was a pivotal moment. It encouraged him to give directing more thought. The set wasn't a tranquil place either.
When the show was at its height, in 1976 and 1977, the actors began arguing over money and screen time. The actor who played Potsy, Anson Williams, was earning $12,000 every episode. Half of what Ron Howard was paid was that amount. He felt envious and frustrated. When an episode called The Muckrakers was being filmed on November 16, 1976, Williams allegedly stormed off the set. The creator of the show, Gary Marshall, had changed a scene to Howard's advantage.
It was perceived by some as favoritism.
Though nothing was ever confirmed, there were rumors of a physical altercation. In an effort to safeguard their $50 million machine, ABC tried to remain silent. The situation worsened in 2012, years later. In order to recover $10 million in unpaid royalties, Williams and other cast members sued CBS. They asserted that they never received their fair share of the sales.
Happy Days lunchboxes sold more than 5 million copies in 1976 alone.
A settlement was reached on April 4, 2012. They were each given only $65,000. While the studios made millions, Williams claimed he never even earned $100,000 annually. In a 2025 interview, Howard acknowledged that those instances nearly destroyed friendships, despite not being involved in the lawsuit. Howard made his first short film in secret in early 1975 while still performing in Happy Days. It was a 10-minute film titled Deed of Daring Do. During a 2-week vacation in March, he used just $2,000 to shoot it.
Henry Winkler even appeared in passing. The movie made its debut on June 15, 1975, at a small festival.
Although there were rumors that he had been accused of plagiarism, nothing was ever confirmed.
Copyright regulations were ambiguous in those days.
Although there was nothing connected to Howard, other creators were forced to settle for as much as $5,000 in a fanfic lawsuit in 1976. On April 20, 1975, producer Roger Corman's request for reshoots was what truly rocked him. It nearly destroyed his budget by costing him an additional $500.
The movie went on to win a minor award at the September 10 Atlanta Film Festival.
He directed Grand Theft Auto in 1977 as a result of this small project. Although it only cost $600,000, that film brought in $15 million. Howard married Cheryl Alley, his high school sweetheart, on June 7, 1975.
Just $800 was spent on the Burbank wedding. Henry
Winkler served as the best man, and Cheryl's father covered the cost.
Approximately 300 people attended.
Despite earning $25,000 every episode, Howard preferred a low-key wedding.
Beginning on June 8, 1975, they spent a peaceful 2 weeks in Hawaii on their honeymoon.
There isn't any concrete evidence to support the rumors that tabloids began publishing infidelity stories and leaking private photos in 1977. Later on in 1978, the rumors got worse.
False rumors of cheating were circulated by the National Enquirer on October 15.
"It was humiliating," Howard said. They received a kissing chair for their 50th anniversary, which brought back memories of their early romance, he said in a 2025 interview.
Ron Howard took a risk by July 1980.
Happy Days was abandoned by him.
Even with 20 million viewers each week, Howard desired more. He requested permission from ABC to direct TV films.
In response, they offered him $100,000 for an additional 3 years.
"No," he said. He agreed to pay $1 million to NBC on July 20, 1980. He was given complete creative control by that new contract. He departed Happy Days shortly before the start of Season 8 on September 9, 1980.
The fans were shocked. ABC received 15,000 letters pleading with him to come back by August.
Later on, Howard claimed that ABC handled him like an eagle snatching a baby.
Night Shift, which was released in 1982, was his first significant project following his departure. Earned $21 million.
The show, however, was never the same.
In Richie's absence, ratings fell by 30%.
It continued to run for 255 episodes until 1984.
Howard was only 23 when he directed Grand Theft Auto in 1977. In addition, he co-wrote it with his father, Rance, and starred in it. After its June 16 release, it made $15 million and became an unexpected hit.
However, a car stunt during filming went horribly wrong. Paul Bartle, the stuntman, was gravely hurt.
In addition to internal injuries, he broke bones. Howard was afraid his directing career would be cut short before it had even started. The case was quietly settled by him in 1978.
Did that mishap remain with him? He prioritized safety in all subsequent endeavors. Splash, which Howard directed, debuted in theaters on March 9, 1984.
It brought in $69.8 million, but it cost $11 million to make. Tom Hanks was made famous by it.
However, behind the scenes, chaos ensued.
Particularly over changes to the script, Hanks threw fits. On July 15, 1983, while filming in New York, Hanks and the crew got into a heated argument. When a fight broke out, Howard had to intervene. Disney saved the movie with their new Touchstone label after the studios almost canceled it. When Howard was filming Cocoon in Florida in 1985, an irate extra named Harold Jenkins threatened to kill him. After being fired, Jenkins threatened violence in letters on February 12. The movie, he thought, made fun of the elderly. Fox was forced to pay $150,000 for round-the-clock security.
In order to postpone the release until June 21, the script was softened.
The movie still earned $85 million and took home the visual effects and Donna Mesh Oscars.
Willow was released on May 20, 1988.
Howard oversaw the $35 million project, which George Lucas had conceived of in 1972. Due to extensive marketing and unimpressive reviews, it lost $20 million despite making $137.6 million worldwide.
Howard and Lucas were at odds all the time.
The $5 million cuts were the subject of an argument in June 1987.
Howard almost gave up. Later, home video helped it break even. Howard published Parenthood on August 2, 1989.
His daughter, who was 4 years old, threw up sushi on him during a tumultuous flight to Australia, which served as the inspiration for the book. Despite spending $20 million, the movie made $126 million. But writer Elena Vasquez sued Howard in May 1989, saying he had stolen her script. In June, he made a $500,000 settlement. The case nearly prevented the movie from being released.
Backdraft, a firefighter drama, was directed by Howard in 1991. An attempt at a stunt failed on July 23, 1990.
A huge fire started, scorching Kurt Russell's face and hand. OSHA's investigation revealed significant safety infractions. They also burned 3 other crew members. They had no idea when the fire would turn on them, Howard later said. Despite this, the film made $152 million.
And received a visual effects nomination for an Oscar. On June 30, 1995, Apollo 13 was released. $355 million were made globally.
Filming, however, was difficult.
Even the NASA transcripts had to be accurate, according to Tom Hanks. He demanded rewrites of the script on October 12, 1994. The entire $2 million production was shut down by October 15. Howard made a resignation threat on October 18. Employees of NASA had to mediate.
In 1996, the movie went on to win Oscars for sound and editing.
On November 8, 1996, Ransom was released, earning $309 million. In early 1996, however, Howard received terrifying threats during filming that were reflected in the film. Threatening letters were sent to his children on February 14. The FBI intervened. Untrustworthy cars and tapped phones were discovered close to his home. The family was forced to move on March 5.
In April, the suspects left California, but no one was arrested. Afterwards, Howard claimed that this made the film his most intimate creation. Jim Carrey starred in The Grinch, which was released on November 17, 2000. It brought in $345 million. The filming, however, was harsh.
Carrey had to endure 2.5 hours of makeup application each day.
He lost it on the 22nd of March. He even shoved Howard during their altercation.
The filming paused for a day. Carrey subsequently pledged to behave better by April. When the movie took home the 2001 Oscar for makeup, it was a success.
On December 21, 2001, Howard published A Beautiful Mind. The narrative recounted John Nash's struggle with schizophrenia. It earned $313 million, and on March 24, 2002, it took home the Best Picture and Best Director Oscars.
The set was tense, though.
Russell Crowe acted violently at times. On June 10, he once threw a phone at a hotel room attendant. He was even fired by Howard on April 15. However, in order to save $500,000 every day, he hired him back just 2 days later. According to Jennifer Connelly, who played Nash's wife, Howard kept everything together during the commotion. Ron Howard's film, The Da Vinci Code, created a global stir in 2006. Religious organizations were incensed, particularly the Catholic Church. According to the story, Jesus had a child with Mary Magdalene, which a group known as Opie-shaming allegedly concealed. This sparked protests in numerous nations. Christian organizations called for its outlawing in India. In the Philippines, it was rated exclusively for adults. Ron Howard had to hire bodyguards and even received death threats following a bomb scare at the May 17 Cannes premiere. In the middle of the screening, critics cheered and laughed. Opie-shaming pleaded with Sony on February 14 to include a fiction disclaimer, claiming that the film was a perverted portrayal of the church. U.S. The movie was deemed morally offensive by Catholic bishops, who also launched a website called JesusDecoded.com. Despite all of the controversy, it brought in $760 million worldwide. However, Howard later acknowledged that it was annoying to be constantly angry about it. Because they were filming without permits in Italy, Howard and writer Dan Brown almost got arrested. Ironically, the Vatican warned against watching it and labeled it anti-Catholic, which piqued people's interest. Things got messy when Solo was being made in 2017. An episode of Star Wars. Due to creative disagreements with Lucasfilm, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, the original directors, were let go in June. To save the project, Ron Howard was brought in. To meet a strict deadline of May 2018, he ultimately reshot roughly 70% of the movie between late June and mid-October. This resulted in a $275 million budget. Howard allegedly ruined the film by removing the entertaining, risky style and substituting a more vintage Star Wars vibe. Lawsuits even occurred. Alden Ehrenreich was among the actors who required assistance in order to fit into the role. Release was postponed. Instead of accepting director credit, Lord and Miller chose to accept executive producer titles. Disgruntled fans even started petitions challenging Howard. He disregarded the earlier footage, according to some insiders, which led to fights on set. Although the movie still made $393 million, it fell well short of projections. Whether Howard was too cautious was a topic of debate. Ron Howard had more problems with Angels and Demons in 2009. The film's wild tale of the Illuminati and antimatter threatening Rome portrayed the Catholic Church as the enemy. Howard claimed on May 3 that the Vatican had secretly prohibited him from shooting in places of worship, which compelled his team to construct counterfeit versions. He estimated that the earnings from this covert boycott cost him $50 million. At first, the Vatican's paper refused to endorse the film, but later declared it harmless. Archbishop Valesio de Paulus issued a warning in April that, similar to what transpired with the Da Vinci Code, protesting could actually make matters worse. Another Catholic leader, William Donahue, advised people to spread the truth rather than boycott. Some churches even refused to allow filming because the story featured murders. Tom Hanks stated that the film's goal was to arouse curiosity rather than rage, and it still earned $485 million. In contrast to the previous movie, the Vatican remained largely silent. Regarding the 2014 movie The Good Lie, Imagine Entertainment, which is owned by Ron Howard, was the target of a significant lawsuit in 2015. The film used the suffering of 54 Sudanese refugees without paying them fairly. In Atlanta, they filed a 101-page lawsuit on February 19. In exchange for $55,000 and a promise of assistance, they claim to have told devastating tales of famine and fleeing militias. The refugees claimed they never saw a dime of the Reese Witherspoon film, which was released on October 3. Mike Nagel and Bobby Newmeyer, producers, were accused of breaching their agreement. Howard's team raised millions for refugee aid, shocking fans. In 2017, a confidential settlement was reached in the lawsuit. Despite not being specifically named, Howard received a lot of negative feedback. Because of the actual suffering it depicted, the film made a significant impact despite only earning $3.2 million in the US. In 2013, while Rush was being filmed, a horrible accident occurred. A 1976 Formula One rivalry served as the basis for the movie. Also injured was stunt driver David Crowder during a scene that recreated Niki Lauda's fiery crash. The car crashed after a suspension failed on August 1 while filming the flaming wreck at the Nürburgring. It was uncannily like the actual incident. Safety was ignored, Crowder claimed in his lawsuit. A settlement was reached in the case in 2014. Only 18 days after the film's September 27 release, Sean Edwards, the son of the stunt coordinator, died in a car accident, making matters worse. Howard faced difficult questions about taking shortcuts with the $38 million budget for the $38 million atonement after being subpoenaed. Although Rush earned $90 million, many felt that it exalted danger excessively, particularly given that actual crash footage showing Lauda's injuries was used.
Ron's daughter, Bryce Dallas Howard, took on the Nepo baby controversy head-on in August 2025.
She was born on March 2, 1981, and stated in an interview with Happy Sad Confused that she was well aware of her Hollywood privilege. Her father, Ron, her grandfather, Rance, 1928, 2017, her uncle, Clint, born 1959, and her grandmother, Jean, who lived from 1927 to 2000,
had a stake in the company.
She acknowledged that doors opened for her with ease, but she also emphasized how hard she worked.
Online, fans' opinions were divided.
Her honesty was commended by some, while others questioned whether Ron had assisted her in landing roles. Bryce repeatedly stated that family privilege was a major factor, but Ron never stated in public that he gave her jobs.
In contrast to other celebrities who deny any advantage, BuzzFeed commended her transparency in 2025. One unexpected fact was that Henry Winkler is her godfather. Her credits by that time included directing multiple movies and starring in Jurassic World, which brought in over $1.6 billion in 2015. Rance Howard, Ron's father, died on November 25, 2017, at the age of 89. He contracted the West Nile virus, which led to heart failure. Born on November 17, 1928, Harold Beckenholt.
Since 1949, Rance has acted in more than 140 movies and 177 television series. Rance's passion for acting transformed their family forever, according to a heartfelt ode written by his sons, Ron and Clint, in People. He starred in Nebraska and Chinatown, among other films. No concrete evidence of a fight between Clint
and Ron over the will ever surfaced, despite rumors to the contrary.
All of the evidence instead suggested that the brothers had a close relationship.
Ron even expressed his gratitude on Twitter for having Clint as a brother.
Among the numerous projects the two collaborated on was Grand Theft Auto in 1977.
Rance's continued acting until the very end is one emotional fact.
He completed a role just 36 hours prior to his death. June 7, 2025, marked the 50th anniversary of Ron and Cheryl Howard's marriage. They were high school friends at first,
at California's Burbank's John Burroughs High. They went on their first date on November 1, 1970. In addition to eating pizza, they watched It's a Mad, 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 Mad World.
Ron posted on Instagram to express his gratitude for the challenges they had overcome together. Reed was born in 1987, Paige and Jocelyn were twins in 1985, and Bryce was born in 1981.
By 2025, they had 6 grandchildren.
Although there were rumors of a potential divorce in the 1980s because of Ron's obsession with his job, no recent interview verified it.
They appeared to be stronger than before instead.
Ron claimed in 2020 that no one else was ever suitable for him. When they reenacted their first date in their vintage 1970 VW Bug, it was the cutest moment.
Cheryl was the entertaining grandma who broke all the rules for the grandchildren.
Ron Howard faced criticism in 2011 for a line in his film The Dilemma, which came out on January 14. The character played by Vince Vaughn joked that electric cars were gay, but not in the gay sense.
GLAAD and Ellen DeGeneres criticized the joke for promoting bullying, particularly in the wake of Tyler Clementi's suicide in September 2010.
On October 30, Universal stopped making jokes about trailers.
However, Howard left it out of the movie. Removing the joke would ruin the comedy, he claimed, because it suited the character's personality.
He acknowledged that he didn't anticipate such a strong response in an interview with the BBC in January, but he later realized how damaging the word could be.
GLAAD and Anderson Cooper, among others, criticized it as a harmful slur. Despite his concern for sensitivity, Howard stated that he did not wish to restrict narrative.
Although the film made $69.7 million, the joke remained a touchstone.
Ron directed Hillbilly Elegy for Netflix in 2020.
The November 24 release of the film, which was based on J.D. the autobiography of Vance. Glenn Close, who was nominated for an Oscar and won a Razzie, played the grandmother, while Amy Adams played the mother. The film's budget was $45 million. Audiences rated it 82%, while critics only gave it 25% on Rotten Tomatoes. Howard expressed his surprise at Vance's appointment as Trump's running mate in 2024 to Vulture in August 2025. When they filmed in 2018 and 2019, he claimed Vance appeared to be moderate. Vance had gone so far as to call Trump reprehensible back in 2016.
Howard confessed.
On November 6, 2024, he sent Vance a cold text message expressing his disappointment but also congratulating him.
"A mixed bag," he said of the film.
There was a strong fan response despite the negative reviews. Vance's shift in values, according to Howard, was the true surprise. Eden, Ron's 2025 film, had its Toronto Film Festival premiere on September 7. Starring Jude Law, Sydney Sweeney, Daniel Brawl, Vanessa Kirby, and Ana de Armas, the film was originally called Origin of the Species. A wild true story from the Galapagos Islands in the 1920s, where murder was the result of betrayal and jealousy, served as its inspiration. Beginning on November 27, 2023, and primarily taking place in Queensland with a few shots in the Galapagos, the filming ran until February 14, 2024. $55 million was the initial budget amount, but decreased to $35 million as a result of Australian tax incentives.
Howard stated in an interview on August 25 that he was anxious while filming the true story.
One startling scene, which was based on a true 1934 tragedy, showed a woman giving birth by herself and passing away.
The reviews were not entirely consistent.
Some rated it as dark, sexy, and ridiculous, and Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 68% rating.
Howard claimed it was a warning about loneliness, particularly in the wake of COVID.
A baroness and 2 murders were part of the actual case, which Howard kept in the script but only slightly toned down.
When Ron appeared in the studio's Seth Rogen-led comedy in 2025, he received his first acting Emmy nomination. On July 15, 23 nominations were received for the show.
Ron pretended to be a humorously exaggerated version of himself and engaged Rogen's character in a yelling match and even a brawl in the 3rd episode, which aired on March 14.
He had not performed on television since Happy Days concluded in 1984.
He claimed in an interview with People on September 6 that he was too superstitious to hope for victory due to an incident that occurred in 1995. The paper made $48 million at the box office back then, despite having a $30 million budget. And Ron said it was because he disregarded a psychic's advice. He made a joke on Instagram about going 195 TV years without winning an acting award.
This was his 14th overall Emmy nomination. He was a 3-time winner as a producer. Howard ended up with a real bruised rib in January 2025 as a result of the shockingly improvised fight scenes in the show.